Hello, and welcome to the Mississippi Valley Archaeology Center's UWL Archaeology Alumni Podcast. I'm MVAC archaeologist Cindy Kutchik. Through this podcast series, we're connecting with alumni of the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse Archaeology program. We're getting perspectives on their experiences at UWL, especially their involvement at MVAC, and their path after graduation. More broadly, we're looking at what they were able to take forward professionally or in other areas of life, and hopefully hearing some interesting stories along the way. Today's guest is Dr. Ken Ritchie. He started classes at UWL in 1998 and graduated with a BS in archaeology in 2001. While at La Crosse, he was also a volunteer firefighter with the town of Campbell. Ken then earned an MS in anthropology and a PhD in anthropology from UW-Madison, both of which focused on archaeology. He is now a zooarchaeologist and field archaeologist at the Moesgaard Museum in Denmark. He's also worked in Norway and Germany and been on excavations in Romania, Latvia, and Bahrain. Welcome, Ken. Thank you for being here today.
It's great to be here. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. I'm sure they have plenty to talk about with all the international travel and all your experiences here at La Crosse too. So you attended UWL after earning a Bachelor of Business Administration from UW-Madison in 1991. What led you to study archaeology, and what was the process of pursuing another degree, like coming into another university and studying something else?
Well, I'm a Wisconsin boy. I grew up mostly in and around Madison. I was born in Wisconsin Rapids, but we moved to the Madison area. And so all my life, Indian mounds, the effigy mounds were everywhere. And I thought this was uh, something that you found everywhere. It was only much later when I became an archaeologist, I found out how special Wisconsin is with our archaeological heritage. And so I was always interested in archaeology, but I never really thought it was something that normal people did. I thought it was something that rich people pursued as sort of a hobby. After I got my business degree, I had several different jobs, and I ended up living in New Mexico. And while I was out walking around in different national monuments and parks, I met some archaeologists. I talked to them, and I found out that it actually was it was a job, it was a career, it was something you could do. And so I decided, well, that's what I want to do. And so I moved back to Wisconsin because I had heard about the UW-La Crosse archaeology program. At the time, it was one of only 12 undergraduate archaeology programs in the United States. I don't know if that's still true, but there weren't too many options. And I was delighted to hear that one of them was in Wisconsin. So I moved back and I worked for a while to reestablish my residency so I could pay resident tuition. And then I took one class as a special student, World Archaeology, with Jim Gallagher, and boy, it just fired me up. I was delighted. It was so exciting, so interesting. He was a great professor. He made it so interesting and so engaging that the next semester I did a independent study class because of my work. It was hard for me to commute to La Crosse. I lived in Sauk City at the time, and after that semester, I was convinced that this is what I was going to do. So I moved to La Crosse and became a full-time student.
Did you take a field school while you were at La Crosse?
I did take a field school. I was at the Krause site, same as Dave Alderman, who recently did a podcast for you. Oh, that guy was a troublemaker, let me tell you. He was a handful. Dave and I are still great friends. We stay in touch to this day. Yeah, I was at the Krause site for, I forget how many weeks it was, but it was really exciting. We had great archaeology there, a lot of Oneota pit features with lots of finds, bones, ceramics, and later when the flotation was done, macrobotanical remains. And then the next year or 2 years later, I was a field school supervisor at the White Mound Group in Unalaska.
How
Also a
is
great
that,
experience.
how is that different from being a student and kind of transitioning into more of a mentoring or teaching role for the younger students?
It was great. It was fun to share what I'd learned. I mean, at that point, I was fairly inexperienced myself, but I'd been in the field, and I was passing on what was taught to me and the importance of, yeah, how how precise one has to be as an archaeologist. Everything has to be documented. We're not out there looking for treasures. We're out there looking for information, and the only way to get that information is to be very, uh, yeah, again, precise in how we do things. It was a great experience, and very interesting archaeology at the time. At the Whitefield Mound, the White Mound Field program, one of the locals came and visited us and said, "Hey, there's a bunch of ceramics out in the river. Do you want to see them?" And they sent me over with him, and I found some red slipped Mississippian sherds, and we found a Mississippian presence in Alaska that we didn't know about before. Just wading around in shallow water picking up pot sherds. So you never know what you're going to find when you're in the field. It's part of why I love it.
Definitely. Part of the program today is that graduating students do a senior thesis or a senior project. Did you do a senior thesis?
I did do a senior thesis, and it was GIS, and I was trying to look at using GIS to look at site catchment areas in the La Crosse region. And whew, I'm so glad I did it because I still use GIS today. It's an important tool for archaeologists. But at the time, I knew nothing of it. I took some classes at La Crosse so I could learn how to do GIS, and GIS wasn't as advanced then as it is now, so I had a lot of problems. I didn't end up achieving everything I had hoped to do. I guess no one does in their senior thesis, but I learned a lot about GIS along the way, and yeah, as I said, I still use it today. It's a great basis.
After completing senior thesis and graduating with that bachelor's degree, you continued your education as a grad student at UW-Madison, and you earned degrees, master's and a PhD in anthropology. What did you study there more specifically, and how did your experience as an undergrad at UWL affect those later graduate studies?
Oh, there's a lot in that question. Uh, Interestingly, because of my experience with GIS, I decided to pursue that at Madison, and I was specifically interested in Paleo Indians, and I wanted to see how GIS could help us unlock uh, some of the data we have to understand Paleo Indians better. However, uh, Dr. Douglas Price was a member of the faculty at the UW-Madison, and he had excavated in Denmark for many years. And after my first semester, he asked me if I would like to participate in an excavation in Denmark the next summer, to which I said, yes, please. And we worked at two different sites that summer. The second site, Drausholm, we only had a week, and we just put in a test trench to see what the conditions of preservation were. And we found hundreds, if not thousands, of fish bones, which I was interested in. I'm a Wisconsin boy. I'm a lifelong fisher, and fish are interesting to me. So I asked him who was going to look at the fish bones, and he said, "Well, I don't know yet." And so I said, "Well, just out of curiosity, could I look at some of them and see what I can learn from them?" And he said, "Sure." And so I started going around to fish markets and buying fish and cooking them down so I could get the skeletons. And yeah, we had a local Danish amateur archaeologist who was also a fishmonger, and he helped me obtain a lot of fish, which I cooked down and made into skeletons. And yeah, the more I worked on it, the more interested I became, and so I ended up switching my thesis topic, my dissertation topic, from Paleo Indians using GIS to fishing in the late Mesolithic of Denmark. part of the yeah part of archaeology. You have to follow where the data is, where the data are. Sorry. Uh, uh, you never know what you're going to find. You have to be open to new possibilities, and because I did that, uh, yeah, I ended up with a Danish wife, and today I live in Denmark.
In your days at UW-La Crosse, did you do anything with fish or skeletal analysis that you were able to build on as a grad student?
Sadly, I did not, because there were some very talented undergraduates who were working with bones at the time with Dr. Jim Thieler, and so I felt like that lane was pretty much occupied, and so I did not. Although Jim Thieler and I are still in contact, and after I became a more of a zooarchaeologist, we laughed about it because he he's obviously a very talented zooarchaeologist, and I could have learned a lot from him. But as I said, I thought that that path was blocked, and so I didn't go that way. But what I did learn at La Crosse was a processual outlook. I know that's sort of outdated terminology, but at the time, processualism was still uh, the way we referred to it, which is a very data-oriented uh, perspective on looking at the past. And yeah, that has served me well ever since. It helped me a great deal in my graduate career, because while other people were, some of my fellow students were interested in theory, which is important. Don't get me wrong, theory is very important, but they were they weren't so data driven as I was, and I think that helped me get through the program more quickly. I was the first one of my cohort to get my PhD, one of only three of us, I guess, out of the original 10 who finished.
Great. Did you do any work at MVAC while you were an undergraduate and after you had completed that Krause Field School?
I did, I think even maybe it was after my field school. That was one of the great things about the UW-La Crosse program, is how close it's combined with MVAC. And so I had a chance to do hands-on archaeology, both in the lab and in the field, almost since I started. I had an advantage because it was my second degree, and so I didn't have so many prerequisites, and I could start right away with my archaeology education. And yeah, uh, being a good field archaeologist is what I learned at MVAC and La Crosse. Also, being a good lab archaeologist, but being good in the field, knowing what you're doing in the field, is one of the most important tools you can have as an archaeologist. Not everyone does field work. Not everyone likes field work, but I got excellent training and I got a lot of experience. And that's why I got invited to go to Denmark on excavation, because Dr. Price recognized that people who come from La Crosse know how to dig.
After completing your work at UW-Madison and earning your PhD, what path did your career take you then?
Yeah, many interesting stories. Part of it was that I heard about at the University of Bergen, they were doing oxygen isotope analysis of otoliths, and we had a lot of otoliths from our excavations in Denmark. And so I wrote a small grant with the American Scandinavian Foundation. They gave me money to go up to Bergen for 2 weeks and do that oxygen isotope analysis. Only 7 otoliths, I think, 5 otoliths. There wasn't much money, but I got some good results. And while I was there, I met Karen Hufthammer, who was the zooarchaeologist of Norway at the time, and we got to know each other. And she hired me to come back, and I worked up in Bergen for 9 months on some really interesting Mesolithic material from two rock shelters up in Western Norway. And so that was my first real job after graduating. While I was working up there, uh, I had made contacts with a German zooarchaeologist in Schleswig, and he helped me write an application and start working on a project in Romania, a Copper Age tell from about 4000 BC, hopefully. really exciting excavation. They just finished. They excavated there for 21 years, 22 years. I was only part of it for about 8 years. But again, this great situation with thousands and thousands of fish bones. I also looked at the bird bones from that site. And so I got a job in Schleswig, and I spent the week down there and worked, and then came home on the weekends for 3 years. And after that, I was got involved in a project in Latvia, a freshwater shell midden, again, because of my fishbone expertise. And I worked on that project for 3 years, part-time in Schleswig, and part-time I started to work at Moesgaard. I'd actually been involved with Moesgaard before. I'd done some small projects for them. But then I started working at Moesgaard. And when that project was finished in Latvia, then I was hired at Moesgaard. Although I took some breaks because I wanted to do field work, and I worked for a couple other museums, Silkeborg Museum and Southwestern Jutland Museum, so I could be in the field. I spent about 13 months in the field on excavation, and then I came back to Moesgaard full time. I work on various projects. We do the natural science support for many museums around Denmark. Specifically, when they find bones, they send them to us for identification and analysis. That's what I do today. Title is, I guess, zooarchaeologist.
In the position you're currently in at the museum, have any skills or methodologies you learned at UWL carried over into what you do now?
Data, absolutely. It's generating data and analyzing data. As I said, I learned how to be a field archaeologist at La Crosse. I've continued to learn. There's always more to learn, but the field school, the field skills I learned at La Crosse are maybe the biggest thing. How to interpret the differences in texture and color in the soil. It's hard to explain to people who are not archaeologists, because much of what we do seems kind of crazy. People come by and visit our excavations all the time, and they're really, you can see all that, but that's what being an archaeologist is. Learning to recognize those subtle differences in the soil that can mean so much. So, yeah, data and how to excavate. I think those are the two big things I took with me from La Crosse.
Was there anything at UWL, at MVAC, that you wish you had the opportunity to do, or any skills you wish you would have learned while in La Crosse?
Mostly, I'm just grateful for all the opportunities I had. There's, the field work and the data analysis, and I got to work with lots of different laboratory techniques, flotation, sorting macrobotanical remains. I got to work with GIS, which at the time I think not too many students did. I got to work with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, and just being part of an archaeological team, which is an important thing. It's that also carries over, because the days of the lone archaeologist, the Indiana Jones type, if it ever was true, isn't true anymore. We work in teams, and we have to be able to share data with each other and learn what other people are, what they're getting from their data that can help explain the site as a whole. Bones of themselves, they're interesting to me, but they don't tell us that much unless we can combine all the different classes of material evidence, and then we can really learn something about the past.
Taking a broader view, are there any skills you've developed or things you've learned that you've carried over into your non-professional life, kind of more generally, that you've picked up over time?
I think it's getting along with people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. I've had the blessing of being able to go on excavation in Romania and Latvia. I've worked in Norway. I've been to conferences all through Europe, and yeah, being interested in people and knowing that everybody has something to contribute, and being open to that, being open to different cultures and different backgrounds. I really think that's enriched me in a lot of ways. I live in a different country now. I don't live in the United States anymore, although I miss the United States. And so uh, just being able to get along, being open to new experiences.
Working in places like Norway and Germany and Latvia, have you learned foreign languages, or was that part of your undergraduate or graduate work to be able to help you work in Europe?
Uh, in my first undergraduate degree in business administration, I actually took 2 semesters of German. I'd taken German in high school. While I worked in Germany, I took German language classes, and I'm still terrible at it, but I can understand them. I'm just not that good at speaking it. It's complicated. The grammar is very complicated for me. I do speak Danish now. I took 2 semesters or 3 semesters of Danish while I was in graduate school, but it was first when I moved over here and was surrounded by Danish speaking people that I started to get okay at it. I still think people tell me I speak well, but Danish is a hard language. But in my daily life, both at home and at work, I speak Danish. I only get to speak English occasionally these days, so it's sort of a treat. That's why you can hear I stumble over my words, because sometimes I want to say something in Danish, and I have to remember, oh no, I'm speaking English now. So I did learn some Romanian while I was working in Romania, but only a very little bit how to say good morning or good afternoon, thank you, that sort of stuff. Norwegian was actually not that difficult because Norwegian and Danish are very similar. They're pronounced differently, but the written version is very much the same. So when I worked up in Norway, generally I would speak in Danish and they would answer me in Norwegian. And once in a while we would switch to English if the topic was too hard.
Many students in the UWL archaeology program go on to work in cultural resource management or CRM. But what is it like working in a museum context?
Well, it's very much what we do. It's called Chapter 8 over here, which is development-led archaeology. A difference between Denmark and the United States is that uh, any work that's going to affect possible archaeological remains has to be cleared by archaeologists. Sometimes it's just looking at the records and saying, "Wow, we don't really see anything in this area, and so we don't expect anything. So we've checked and go ahead." But usually, what we do is we go out and do survey work, which here is usually taking a digging machine and stripping off 2 to 3 meter wide trenches and looking for whatever archaeology is under the surface. And then if we find enough, then we go ahead and do a full-on excavation. A lot of it is Iron Age. We find a lot of houses and fences and yeah, farms, villages. So uh, most of the bone analysis I do is from developer-led excavations. That's why it gets sent to us. So CRM is a big part of my work.
To wrap things up here, is there any advice that you have for prospective or current students in archaeology?
Take take the chance to do it. Enjoy your time at the UW-La Crosse. It's a fantastic environment. It's a fantastic opportunity to begin a career in archaeology. The training you get there, the ability to do hands-on archaeology almost from the beginning is really a blessing. It's something that you don't get at a lot of other schools. And I would say to be open, to always be learning new things. As I said earlier, I expected to do GIS and look at Paleo Indians, and today I'm a zooarchaeologist who's a specialist in fish bones. Uh, Always be looking for something new, always be open to something new. Uh, Never stop learning. There's always new things to learn, and it can only benefit you. I got a little bit into isotope analysis just because I had heard about the possibility to do seasonality to find out when the fish were caught. And I'm by no means an expert in isotopes, but I learned quite a lot about it. Uh, yeah, just by being open to the possibilities.
Great concluding advice. And thank you for being on today and for having this discussion.
My pleasure, Cindy.
And thank you, those of you who listened to this episode. If you want to find out more about archaeology and about MVAC's work, you can dig into our resources on the MVAC website at uwlax.edu/MVAC.